Hi, everyone. Today with me is Felix. He is a former student of mine in Cal State Fulton, studying computer science. Has significant experience in cybersecurity, more on the engineering side, and is interested to go into product management. And in this session, we're going to do a mentoring one-on-one to see how Felix can maximize the impact of his resume and also the job opportunities. We'll hear a bit about his experience so far, and hopefully you would benefit from that too. And with that, Felix, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. So yeah, as Itay said, my name is Felix. I am a third-year student, transfer student at Cal State Fullerton, studying computer science and cybersecurity with a specialization. I've had the definitely privilege of exploring various different types of careers. I initially started out kind of traditional software engineering, working for companies like Northrop Grumman, NASA, kind of looking at the government route. That kind of got me interested into cybersecurity, where I got to try out some more kind of engineering focused roles at places that were more outside of the government. So I even did kind of a stint at Amazon. And most recently, as you mentioned, I'm looking into product management, as I'm really kind of finding that my creativity kind of goes beyond just typical software engineering and really goes beyond into the era of product entrepreneurship and kind of the business end of engineering. And so, yeah, in terms of what I'm looking to get out of this, I've had a lot of work done on my resume in terms of trying to make it really tailored towards software engineering over the years. But product management is something that finding direct resources for how to go for those actual jobs and how to find internships or programs for that has been kind of difficult. I find mostly that I get told, oh, you should be a software engineer. It's like, yeah, I like doing that, but I want to do product management. So I'm hoping to get some really good advice, and I think this will be a really awesome session.
Yeah, thank you for this overview. And by the way, I think you already have a couple of good components as we're thinking about going into product management. The first thing is that you have an understanding of the domain, and we're going to talk about that. People that are in product management are usually considered like the voice of the customer, and even though maybe your experience with product management is limited, experience with the domain could be beneficial. We're going to talk about other things that would potentially make resume stronger, like experience with clients and other elements like collective requirements in product management. But I think that overall, that's good. You also have technical background. Technical background in product management is not a must. However, in the field of something as technical as cyber security, that could be very much beneficial. So overall, I think that's good, and we're going to look into your resume. So before we start, two questions. First, you've mentioned that you worked in the past with a couple of companies on the cybersecurity side. Since you had some experience with them and some contacts there, have you considered maybe reaching out to them for product management opportunities? Because you might already have some kind of hooks into those companies. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's one of the first things that I've kind of already tried. So the two companies that are most recent on my resume, Veritext and Walt Disney. Walt Disney was a company that Cal State Fullerton has a connection with. There's a professor, Dr. Mikhail Goffman, who runs that kind of program. And so I'm actually in talks with him because, yeah, I enjoyed doing the engineering half of that program, but very much found myself leaning towards product and being more interested in getting requirements figured out and what the kind of customer role our customer was Disney themselves, but still it was kind of considering their customer needs as kind of working in a dev consultancy role. So that's kind of one avenue I've considered. And at Veritex, where I currently work, I'm in a very weird hybrid-ish role where I kind of technically am the product manager for this tiny idea that we're working on. Essentially, they gave me the opportunity to work with Azure OpenAI and try to build out a OpenAI application. And they're essentially letting me run not the management side, but all of the product end of how I tailor this towards our specific customers. So the customers would be internal. It's a product meant to answer RFP questions, which are these security questions that are pretty typical to the cybersecurity process. And because they're a legal company, they get many of them because they work with so many different clients in the kind of, they're specifically transcripts. So they have to deal with so many different, essentially every case is a new set of clients. So I haven't worked as a traditional product manager, but I think I could ask, hey, can I be more involved in, kind of stand-up meetings, because they do follow Scrum and have people following the Scrum product management style. So I think, yeah, that'd be a good idea, is to reach out and see if I can, transform my role, especially as this product kind of turns from more of an idea into an actual thing that becomes used by people.
This is a very good point. A lot of people, they don't know that they're a product manager because they're not labeled as product manager.
Right.
What it means is that product management is often not a title, it's a set of activities that you do. By the way, very similar to program management. If you're doing program management, like for example, tracking deliverable, coordinating with dependencies, then you are doing program management work. Now, a lot of people are not called product management because product management as a separate title is usually introduced when the project is large enough. For example,
Right.
if you go to most small startup, let's say up to 20, 30 people, something like that, in many cases, you won't find anybody who is a product manager there. And the reason is because maybe the CEO, maybe the CTO, somebody of the founder, they are the product manager. So you won't find somebody with that title. Now, this is important to understand because you might be doing product management activities which are worth highlighting as an item once you know what those product management activities are, which means that even though you technically have not done exactly a full-time role, part of your time was like that. This is also why I also work with US veterans, and it's very common that a lot of people might have done, let's say, program management, even though they were not program manager by title.
Right.
So I think that this is one good tip when you're thinking about your resume. And it's not surprising, again, that in a project, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 people, you don't have anybody who's a product manager, because the engineers themselves
Right.
are the product manager of that product and the program manager as well. So can you tell me a bit about how far you're along in applying? So let's start with the stats. Have you applied? If so, for how many positions, and what's the overall stats of this?
Sure. So this is probably the first year that I put actual effort into going for only product management. I used to do kind of, mostly for software engineering and didn't know how to tailor it. So right now, the actual stats, I've only applied to around 15 companies. And I think that's primarily because in the early days of when I applied to any job, I was definitely, I would just go to LinkedIn, Indeed, whatever, and just kind of shotgun apply with, a tailored sort of resume. But I never found that to work. It was always, if I had a referral or if it was a program at school. And so this is one where I kind of focused on, okay, what companies have sort of, I guess you could call them established product management kind of programs and kind of established titles. And so the ones I applied for it was LinkedIn. Google's wasn't open, but I mentioned that because that is one of the ones I want to look at, their APM or internships program. And so it was LinkedIn, Google, Microsoft, and I think Instacart. So it was only, those are the ones I can remember that were major names. I have a spreadsheet of the other ones. And so far, it's all just in pending stage. The actual applications were, all easy. So I was able to put my resume in and put in all my information in LinkedIn. So they have all of that, but I'm kind of, I've dealt with this before where I get kind of into the, no one's talking to me phase. So that's where I currently am. But I definitely think that it's something that I've seen is that there is some kind of, and you already kind of mentioned it, that there's kind of some things in the resume that I can kind of put to make it more obvious that I'm kind of looking for a product role, because I have struggled in the past. Even the one time I interviewed for a product management role with a company called Mint Mobile back in 2020, they said, you should be an engineer. This is a really good engineering resume. And, I went through the whole process and did okay on the interview, but they eventually were like, you're not really, we don't think you have product sense yet. So, or just didn't think I was, fully ready for product. So that's currently where I am.
Sure. So let's talk about that. I think that you should expect very low response rate. And let me explain
Okay.
why. Because it's multiplying multiple factor.
Got
The
it.
first thing is all those companies that you're applying to, they're great companies.
Yeah.
Which means it's also very competitive. Positions still exist. It's just very competitive. Now, you could expect for, let's say, for engineering, easily maybe 1,000 other people to compete. So what it means is that unless you have a referral, the chance itself is quite low. Having a referral puts you at the maybe top 10%, which is still 100 people, but at least it's one of them that they will read the resume. So this is just one recommendation in general. The second recommendation is that you need to know that your resume, and we're going to talk about that because you've been in engineering, does not say product manager. Now, it doesn't mean that you cannot be a good product manager. It just doesn't say product manager. So what it means is you worked at engineering, and if you haven't calibrated, that's not going to be a product manager oriented. But in order to have something like product management, we'll review your resume. You need to be like much more focused about the fact that you are a product manager. Thinking in that terms, putting like an overview, like a summary on that terms, and also highlighting the product management activities that you've done. If it's client, if it's collecting requirements, if it's marketing a product or something that is more than engineering. Another thing to know about product management is that product management is extremely competitive. Why? Because two reasons. First, there is way more engineers than product managers.
Yep.
In large companies, the average ratio is about 1 to 10, give or take, between a product manager and people that are engineering. And in smaller companies, it's even less. Because remember that in smaller companies, in many cases, the CEO, the founders are basically the product manager. And in small projects, the engineering is the product manager. So if you go to companies, I mean, I'm just guessing, let's say Twitter or something like that, you won't see many product managers there. And sometimes another thing about product manager is that sometimes a significant portion of their work will be taken by not only by engineering, but also UX. Maybe they will hire you user experience person instead. So overall, much less position than engineers. So this is one thing to keep in mind. That should not discourage you. You just need to be realistic about kind of, let's call it the spray and pray type of approach.
Gotcha.
The second thing is that the bar itself is lower. When you want to work in engineering requires a certain degrees, a certain attitude, a certain, like many things. When you think about something like product management, potentially people that are not technical can be there. Once you open the door to non-technical, then many people can go in. Now, in cybersecurity, that might not be that bad, but if you're trying to go to something like, say, consumer or something else where maybe it's more acceptable for people to come or non-technical or even coming from the domain, then you're competing with people from the domain and people that are not technical. So it's even more competitive.
Gotcha.
So this is maybe something to keep in mind that is hyper competitive. However, I think that by having a focus on cybersecurity, you actually have an edge because you can bring domain expertise or market expertise or some types of expertise to highlight. Any thoughts before we go to the resume?
I definitely agree with you on both that the resume doesn't speak for product management. And I think that's something that, we can definitely look at because there are some roles where, like you said, I can kind of almost extrapolate that what I was really doing kind of was product management as opposed to being, a researcher or a fellow, as you'll see on here. And I think that the cybersecurity specialization and kind of, role my career has taken is definitely something that is helpful because, it's an expertise that from whether it's an engineering perspective or even a marketing or product perspective, I can understand and explain very well the security aspects of how it either intertwines or creates limitations or et cetera. And so, I think it's something that really helps as opposed to creates problems. And especially within the field, whether I want to go for, chief information officer or that kind of more product for security route. That's definitely, the expectation is some level of, cybersecurity knowledge that the average person's not going to have.
Yeah, and there is nothing wrong with being an engineer and showing that you've excelled with being an engineer.
Right.
Think about it from the hiring manager point of view on the other side. The hiring manager wants to know, first, are you actually serious about this? Remember, if you like spray and pray, there's a lot of people that just randomly send their resumes to thousands of companies. There is even services that will do it for you. So if that's the case, then how do you know that you're serious? Serious
Right.
about the company, serious about product management, serious about cybersecurity. So you need to pass that kind of I selected you for a purpose type of thing. So this is one. And the second is, can you do your job effectively? Now, how do you know that you can do your job effectively? It's indications of success in the past and understanding. And the last is the junior. Now, I always say that the hardest job is the first one. That's the hardest job to get. However, you can still get it if you show that you have some experience. Now, what does it mean, some experience? Some experience is somebody, you want to make it like somebody with maybe half a year, 1 year of experience. So what it means is that you don't need to learn everything from zero. If you don't need to learn everything from zero, then that company doesn't need to take as much as a bet. They can do much more in-depth product management questions. And in general, I think, by the way, if you know the space well, you would probably be more successful with smaller companies that actually deeply care about, okay, do you understand the space? Can you help us, generate sales? Can you help us understand it? Can you help working with the engineering and grow the product? Then maybe with the larger companies that are more interested in kind of this formal, how much you formally know the processes of product management and the product itself. So this is one recommendation. I would go to maybe smaller. And any other questions before the resume?
No, I think we can get right into it.
Cool, let's do it. So if you can show the resume and let's talk about it.
Yep, let me do presentation. Oh, I have to enable in Google Chrome. I'm sorry.
We're not gonna do full rewrite, maybe for the interest of time. But what we can do is maybe you can use a lot of LLMs, by the way, to rewrite your resume. One advice is try and write it kind of bullets by bullets, maybe a group of bullets, not all the resume together. Less information, better result. And as we're talking about maybe the points, that would be good to revise it based on it.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Here we go.
Cool. So I see your resume here. Hopefully that people on the call will be able to see it. I have no idea what you will be able to see or not. Can you zoom in?
Yep, let's do that. There we go.
Just that it's at width, maybe a bit more.
Oh yeah, sure. No worries.
Okay.
Oh, a little too much.
So let's start with the top. Okay. Well, one thing here is that you don't have location. I always recommend to put location. If you're flexible and just like, hey, I can live anywhere, you can put the location that you intend to live. Think about location is, do we need to pay you to fly here and to relocate, or are you going to do it on your own expense? If you're in temporary housing and you don't have a location, put in the location of the company just says, hey, I can be there and you don't have to pay me for that.
Got it.
First thing about this is I don't think that skills is the right way to open. Remember,
okay.
You are changing from engineer to product management, which means that the first thing needs to be, okay, I am a product manager, and explain why. It's almost like a cover letter.
Okay.
Almost like a paragraph. People ask me, well, what's a cover letter good for? Cover letter is, there are two ways to think about cover letter, maybe the first part. One is, let me just give you the essence of me, kind of like summary. But the second is actually to fill any gaps. So if people are looking, oh, what is this legal solution? Cybersecurity engineer, and then researcher, how is that product manager? Then immediately it's kind of in the first thing you say, seeking product management, worked at different responsibilities, product management across this. Well, just try and make it objective, not subjective. Subjective is, I'm going to be a great product manager. Objective is, go to LLM and ask it, what are the criteria of a good product manager? So for example, it's going to say to you, the ability to work with clients. So then you say, work with clients in the cybersecurity. the ability to do market
Okay.
research the market research. So it's almost like the first thing is why, based on your experience, you would be a good, in an objective way, and a good product manager. So that's the first thing. So far, so good?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. The skills section, yeah, that was a piece of advice that I was given back in the past, especially because it was good for engineering roles. They could see, oh, I do XYZ language. But yeah, it's not going to be individual skills that make the difference as
Sure.
opposed
It
to,
depends. It highly depends on what you plan. So let's continue.
okay.
The second part is if you have experience that is relevant, there are two schools of thought. One school of thought says, put the most recent. Different schools of thought says, put the most relevant. I like the put the most relevant, right? So you were in cybersecurity and you went to get a degree, which is perfectly fine. How many years do you have in cybersecurity?
Overall, I'd say probably 4 since 2020.
4, that is a significant time. Anything I would say above 1 or 2 years of relevant experience, you want it to go up. So the experience would probably go after this, just of an overview of why objectively you could be a good product manager, based, of course, on evidence in the past of things that you've done.
Okay.
Okay. Now, let's go to the experience section, because the experience is going to go next. The experience section have things like develop an enterprise search model for increasing productivity. By the way, August 2023 till present, does that mean you're like part-time working that, or what does it mean?
Yeah, it's basically a part-time job. The story is that it's a smaller company, so they kind of, I reached out and was interested in cybersecurity a long time ago after working for them for an internship that wasn't cybersecurity. They had a role, and it led to this. And so yeah, I've been kind of actively working on this since
It's perfect.
August.
I like people that gain practical experience through school. I think one thing is that usually when people put experience, that means full-time. That does not mean part-time. And together with your degree, that could confuse people. If they are confused, they might think that, oh, that was like a project or like something, or,
Got
so
it.
you might want to clarify the capacity that you worked.
Gotcha.
Cool. Now, if I see those 3 bullets, right? Developed an enterprise search model for increasing productivity of self-staff security interaction using AWS Kendra, automated database syncing and preprocessing directives for internal security data using AWS Lambda and S3, documented development processes extensively using Jira and Confluent presenting. Okay, cool. So there are 2 ways to think about your resume. First is we can talk about, okay, how can you present yourself to be a better engineer? And I can go and talk about these bullets for the next 30 minutes. Right. However, we are aiming for product management.
Yep.
Do you think that this highlight your product management capacity? So that's one. Or the fact that you are successful in general. Successful means you identify problems, you suggest solutions, and you solve them.
If I'm being honest, I don't think it's doing either of those things directly. In terms of how is it addressing product management, I think this was definitely more of an engineering approach because it was more focused on the actual development and what I did in the development side of things, and really only at the end kind of mentioned, oh, by the way, I did a little bit of, these 2 tools that you could say are kind of involved in product management, and hasn't really focused on, like you kind of mentioned, the actual successes or stories of what this product has. Like, it hasn't mentioned the client work I've had to do with Microsoft and Amazon back and forth to make this work. It hasn't talked about kind of the requirements analysis, which has been a constant thing in this entire process where I've been building kind of the whole product. And to be honest, it's also the fact that the title really has changed. I'm not really a cybersecurity engineer anymore. I kind of really am more of a like AI product manager, because I'm not developing security anymore. It's more of a product that will help security. So yeah, it's definitely something that needs to kind of move in that direction.
And so I would say one thing is that if you have basically 2 different roles within the same company, you can either highlight the most relevant role or just kind of slash between them and just say both. What I would say is that I find these bullets, again, not really explaining why you would be a good product manager, and also not really showing the fact that you're successful, because I'm either looking for somebody who knows how to win or like very good, or Somebody who is like would be good with product management or with product management activities. I don't see that here. Now,
Right.
maybe just to add on this, there is another thing to keep in mind here, and that's something I tell people. The resume is not you. Your resume is evidence in the past of areas that you were successful in order to be able to do the job that you're applying to. So think about yourself. Maybe a better way to think about yourself is almost like you are trying to get like a contract work. Okay? So you're applying to be a contractor, let's say to, I don't know, build a pool outside. You have a lot of parts of your personality. Which parts are actually relevant? Now, it all must be true. Which parts are relevant? So the fact that maybe you've done things like documented some development process, it might be something you're very proud of. However, it might not be relevant to product management. You want to put the parts of your work, and of course, if you work for a year plus, I'm sure you have more than 3 bullets to say. You want to
Definitely.
put the parts of your work that you think are significant and relevant. Okay, everything must be true. There are to choose the elements that are relevant for what you're applying to. For example, let's say if I'm a product manager, I also do engineering work. I also do program management work. I do a bunch of stuff, but I might not highlight this if I'm looking for a product management role because it's just not what's relevant for the
Got
role.
it.
Okay, so what I would say, like focus on like the relevancy of the facts that highlight that you either, one, can do that product management successfully, or two, successful in general. Now, if you were successful on the engineering side, it's excellent. You can highlight the engineering success of, let's say, building a product as a way for product management. Now, why is this important? It's important because a lot of people don't know that, but I would say product manager often has 2 reasons of why they fail. And a lot of people that hire, they know that. Number one, you don't understand the clients and what they need. So you cannot function as the voice of the customer. The second is you cannot work with engineering. So those are the 2 parts. So if you worked as a cybersecurity engineer and highlight that, even though it sounds like it's not a product management, it actually is, because it contributes to your ability to work with engineering and product management. So
Got
that's
it.
the area that I think is, again, quite useful. Okay. Now, if you see, for example, the bottom one, the Walt Disney Company, I actually like it. I liked your bullet one before the last one. Presented initial findings as a 23 CCF Student Project Innovation Expo, winning 2nd place, best overall project. So this is an example of success. Okay, so again, it might not be exactly relevant, but it might be a success. Do you have a link or something that people can validate?
Yes, there's 2 links to it. There's one that links directly to, it's a picture of us like winning with the big funny check. And there's an article about the students competing, and it has our team and our names listed in it as well.
In smaller companies, people will often check that. So if you have a GitHub, if you have papers, if you have something, and people are considering you seriously, then they will do that. They will actually go and check. So I think it's very good to make sure that you have the links and the evidence for what you're saying in general.
For sure.
Let's scroll down. Yeah, I think overall you have fine experience. Scroll down. That's the last one, Asa?
Yep.
Okay. So when I read this, I basically read somebody was a software engineer. That's the story. Somebody was a
Definitely.
software engineer, transitioned into cybersecurity, software engineer, done it with a few years, interacted with product management. Now he's looking for a product management role. If I was in a smaller company and I would meet you in person and have a conversation for you, I might take a bet. Right? I think larger companies might be a bit difficult because remember, you mentioned, for example, let's say you apply to LinkedIn. Okay. Potentially, there's more emphasis on the product management element than the cybersecurity element.
Right.
that means that you're going to lose that edge that you have. If you have some
Mm,
experience as a product manager in cybersecurity, then you can always go a year or two later if it does not work for you and apply to companies that put more emphasis on the product management piece. Again, the larger the company, the more emphasis on the product management. The smaller the company, the more emphasis on the clients and being with clients and understanding that domain.
for sure.
Okay, now let's go up to the skills section. Let's say that you are finishing with skills, okay? Do you think those skills are relevant for somebody who's looking for cybersecurity product management?
Nope, definitely not. I'll say that, yeah, programming and technical are just, yeah, a lot of just tools that don't need to be listed, at all. It's just, you can pretty much say it's just technical background. And even for the product management, even if this was the only list of, skills I had, I don't even know if this is 100% the kinds of skills that necessarily apply. I mean, obviously I can write the word project management or product management, but I don't know if listing, the softwares or the methodologies is the best method. So yeah, that's kind of, my look at that so far.
Yes, so I think this includes requires relevancy. For example, if I was in a smaller company and I was looking at your experience, I would want experience with cybersecurity,
Right.
less experience with maybe HTML, CSS. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Because that experience says that you know the market. So, for example, if you worked with elements like, say, what's the one, NetSuite or
Yeah, I've done NetSuite from Oracle. I've done a lot of CrowdStrike work with their tools,
yeah,
Cloudflare. Yeah, I could list honestly. Yeah, I've got a big list, and even the few that I have here of VMware and stuff, I can go way more in depth.
yeah. So I think that that could be quite relevant
Great.
because, yeah, it's because it's relevant, right? Like it's relevant if you're a smaller company that, let's say, wants to integrate with NetSuite. Let's say I'm having, I don't know, like some add-on or something. It's
Hmm.
relevant that you know NetSuite. Maybe not that relevant that you know HTML.
Yeah, definitely. This was kind of more the just, like you said, shotgun approach of just here's every language I theoretically know, as opposed to what I'm really good at. So yeah, makes sense.
So after we talked about maybe the just being realistic and talking about the resume, let's talk about the last element of this. The last element is where do you find the hiring manager in order to network with them so they will know you, take a bet on you, because as we mentioned, you might have much more opportunity with more smaller and focused company. And take a bet on you and have an offer, right? Well, do you go to events? Do you attend webinars? Do you go to conferences in the space? Do you what do you do to find those? Do you network? What do you do to find those medium, small companies?
Sure. So currently, I guess I'm kind of stepping up my efforts, but in the past, I kind of just generally relied on the school network. You're very easily able to go to kind of career center and find lots of just, open-ended events where hiring managers would literally show up. I've also been to the career fair a couple times on campus, but I've been trying to kind of go beyond that and look more at just the industries I'm interested in and events in there. One of them, for example, is I had a friend invite me to, it's just a networking meetup called Irvine Coffee and Code. And from there, I've been kind of trying to find more just tech focused events where people who are in the industry, who have roles and know about roles and are either hiring for them or they can act as a referral. And it's been very helpful so far. The Irvine Coffee Code has led me to a connection with someone that works at Zoom that might lead to an interview. So it's definitely something that I want to continue down the route of. And conferences, that's something I want to also kind of go out of my comfort zone and do because, as a student, obviously conferences can get kind of expensive, but I do know there's also like lots of scholarships that cover it. I think even Google does one where they'll pay for you to go to a conference. I think I just need to kind of find conferences that are relevant to whether, like I said, cybersecurity or product management, and just kind of look for, people who are interested in the same things I am
Sure.
or already doing that.
So I'll give you maybe my advice here. So the first thing to know is events is the best way for you. Events where small companies present, small medium companies, is probably the best way for you to find those opportunities. Why? Because you will probably have the most chance if you will meet one of those people in person, network with them, and then they get a glimpse on who you are, and then they're like, you know what, send me the resume and I'll take a look or take a bet on you. The reason is because product management, unlike engineering, in many cases there is not like position that get advertised because
I've
you don't need
noticed,
many.
yeah.
You don't need many. So in many cases, people just hire from the network of people that they know. Because imagine this. I have a company, 50, 100, 200 people. I need to hire one product manager. I'll get first tips to people in the company. There's so many engineers, I'm sure there is somebody, or maybe I'll give a bet to somebody internal. So there
Right.
might be those opportunities outside, but if it's outside, it's going to be quite competitive. Now, so I would recommend now you're very focused on cybersecurity. So general recruiting events might not be suitable. You want to go for the specific. That's my advice. The second thing is regarding cost. So in many cases, if you email people who organize those events, I'm not talking about if it's like a company, but if
Right.
it's a company, I mean, like not like if Amazon organizes it, but if there is like some group that organizes this, and you just say, I'm a student, I'm poor, can I volunteer?
Right.
Often they would say yes. I know I've done it.
Oh, okay.
Often they would say yes. I mean, why not? I mean, sure, we need volunteer, and you're a student, so why not? It makes me feel good about myself. So a lot of people would say, sure, and we'll do it for free. Same thing as I do the session with you for free. So I think that a lot of people would actually want to help if you're willing to volunteer.
Yeah, that sounds
So,
great. I also would love to volunteer, so that honestly works perfect.
and if you volunteer, that gives you two more edges. Well, three. First, you would learn who the organizers are, and they usually know a lot of people because they are the organizers. The second thing is, if you work at reception, you know the people who attend the conference because you work in the reception, and they come to you and they take the name tags, and you can research who those people are and who are those companies. That's if you're volunteering at the desk. And the last is you just have like a pickup line to talk with them. And you just say, hey, I'm a volunteer, and you go with like your volunteer badge or something that they give to you. So people are often like quite nice. Now, what's interesting is that when you network yourself into those events, it's not like, do you have a job? Do you have a job? Do you have a job for me? It's more like, hey, I'm looking to enter into this field. There are some couple of interesting companies. Oh, maybe I saw something about your company. Do you have any thoughts about me? They're not going to always offer you a job. Usually they won't, but they might know where, and they might have friends. And again, if you talk with enough people, then you only need one opportunity. So I would recommend to volunteer at those events. Another thing I always tell people, which is a big waste that in many cases they don't do that, is another example is you can get speakers at school. So I think school is now over for you, but in general, that's inviting speakers, right? It's always a way because you can invite whoever you want. And there are a couple of other tips. I actually have a video about this, about ways to network with hiring managers. So I think that that's the advice. Now, once you network with them, then it's much easier for you kind of to be top of the stack. And then it's about, just showing that you're relevant. You can learn a bit about the product, learn a bit about the space. First time, it's going to be a bit more work. But after you do it 10 times, I mean, it's basically repeating on itself. And you can already know the space, which is also going to serve you as a product manager.
Awesome. I think it's a really good idea. I hadn't even thought of that too, because I didn't realize that it makes sense. Yeah, people, they need lots of people to do all these different tasks, and volunteering is, I think it's going to be something I can get away with. So thank you.
Yeah, and another thing for you to remember is that a lot of companies in the cybersecurity space are what I would call like B2B. So they sell
Definitely.
to businesses, and that means that in many cases they need like people. So it's not like consumer where you're serving like 1 billion people or something.
Right.
You need like people. You need like people that help the account team or help sales or help on a certain feature, and it's almost like a glorified salespeople sometimes. So I think there is a demand. So I think overall it looks very positive. If you will network, fix your resume and network your work correctly, put your story kind of more straight about why you want to do it, I think that you can do quite well.
Perfect. Thank you. I think this is all super relevant advice. Yeah, I'm going to take this to work and probably clean this up. And yeah, I'll definitely be going to some cool events and seeing what I can do. So thank you so much. This is really helpful.
Sure. Any last questions?
No, I think this is perfect. And yeah, maybe someday I'll show up with a different resume.
Well, and good luck with the rest of your career search.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Good luck.